Welcome to another player podcast from Somerset County Cricket Club, and today we're lucky enough to be joined by probably the best bowler that Somerset and England have ever had, Mr. Andrew Caddick. Welcome, Caddy. Lovely to see you here.
Thank you, Richard.
It's funny, really, that you're a New Zealander, but you ended up making your name playing for Somerset. How does that all come about then?
A very long time ago.
Absolutely.
Right, so 87. Or was it 87 or 88? I can't remember, it was a long time ago. I decided that I wanted to go and visit the UK, as most Kiwis do. They'll pack their bags and go off hitchhiking around the world, but I didn't hitchhike. I went straight to my uncle and aunt's house in Belsize Park, London. And I decided at the time I was going to play a little bit of cricket. I just spent 6 months in the UK to play a bit of cricket. I'd originally was in contact with a club. I think it was Harrow on the Hill club, and when I turned up there, it wasn't exactly a club that I was. It was basically a shed in the middle of the field. Right. So, and at the time, my aunt, who's my dad's older sister, said, "Look, they knew Bromsgrove, and they knew the people at Bromsgrove, they knew the people at Hampstead." So I decided to go down to Hampstead to have a trial. Took 6 wickets and got 80 odd runs in the second team game for them, and they said, "Oh, we'd like you to play in the first team," and the rest is history as far as London's concerned. And subsequently for the next 3 years I came back and forth. Went home, worked for my dad in the plastering business, earned enough money to come back, and I did that for 3 years, and moved around London area. So the first year I was in Belsize Park, the second year I was in Hackney, and the third year I was over at, where was it? It was just north of the M25, I can't remember now. So I got to know Northern London quite well. Playing domestic cricket, or should I say club cricket for Hampstead, there was a gentleman there who was the chairman at the time, president, a gentleman called Roger Oakley, who was very, very good friends with a certain coach at the time down here at Somerset, Jack Birkinshaw. And that was the connection with Somerset. But right. I had played a little bit of Middlesex YCs in 89, and then I played a bit of second team cricket for Middlesex. But it wasn't until Jack got involved, or should I say Roger contacted Jack, and I got a trial down here, that the connection with Somerset was born.
You had a pretty successful kick-off, didn't you, with the second 11 on your first game?
Not my first game. I had a terrible first game.
The second game was pretty successful.
We had I played my first game here, and funny enough, it was my debut for Somerset. There was also a gentleman called Roland Lefebvre's debut for Somerset.
Right.
Played a second team game down here against I think it was an Australian university side, a one-day game. Yeah. And past members will remember the wickets at Taunton back in the late 80s, 90s. It was a road. Did nothing. There was a gentleman called down here called Adrian Jones who was a terror of the ball. It was quick. He was a fast pacer, but this ground here, this wicket here back in the late 80s, it nullified any pace. At the same time, Jimmy Cook was here. He was scoring 2,000 runs before the end of May. I think he got subsequently those 2 seasons, he got over 5,000 first-class runs. And that is testament to what this wicket was like. It was a flat road. There was no grass on it. It was just rolled concrete. So I came down here, got absolutely smashed by an Australian university side. I thought that was my trial gone, my opportunity gone. But the following day, we drove up to London to play against Surrey second 11 at the Oval, and I took 8 for 36 or something in the first innings. Subsequently, when we batted, I broke my thumb, and then I took another wicket in the second innings, but I just couldn't bowl. And at the same time that evening, the chief exec then, Peter Anderson, came up to London, had a chat with me and said, "Right, Caddy, how are we going to get you qualified?" And that's where the qualifications period started with Somerset.
Right. So that's really how it all started with you.
That's how it started. I had to do a 5-year qualification period, and subsequently it was 92 was the year that I was able to play first class cricket. And and up to then I was 2 years in the second team. So I think I still to this day am very annoyed with Rob Turner, who was the second team wicketkeeper then, because I had 96 wickets in the second team that summer, and he dropped 3 catches at Kent, at Canterbury, which I could have got. Anyway, that's a long time ago. But yeah, so for the next 2 seasons while qualifying, I played second team cricket, but also played for a club, Clevedon, up the road near Bristol, who played for them on a Saturday. So a lot of cricket going on, up to the point of actually getting my first class cap.
And you were here. Was it at that stage you were doing jobs around the ground?
I was. I was doing in the winters. I decided after 3 years going back and forth to New Zealand, I decided that I was going to stay a couple of winters in the UK, and subsequently got a job maintaining the ground, painting the ground. The old presidential suite up in the Colin Atkinson pavilion all those years ago, I redecorated the pavilions. It was just an odd jobs job. I remember Peter Anderson, the chief exec, at the same time took me down to his place in Bear and Seaton, and got me painting his soffits, which it's a 3-story house. Yes. I remember doing this, and he'd be hanging out the window making sure I was okay when there was sleet and snow being blown off the top of the roof. So it was an eye opener. But at the end of the day, that's what you did back then. You just mucked in and got on with your job. So if I was to say that my first class, should I say my first second class season, I was paid £1,200 for the summer. That was a summer contract then, for the 2 subsequent seasons. That's a long day. It's a long time ago compared to what they get paid now. But that's what you did. You made good. You played hard, and you went off and did a part-time job just to keep that money coming in.
Indeed, but really, you came to people's attention, didn't you, in '93? I mean, people knew of you, but that particular game down here in '93, May '93, against Lancashire, was when people sat up and started to recognise what Andy Caddick was all about.
Yeah, it was a fortunate game actually, because it was a very wet wicket, and there was a very good groundsman back then called Phil Frost who took over the reins in 91, 92, should I say 92, 93, and he produced hard green wickets. And it was testament to what he was preparing, the fact that he could water the wicket the morning of a match, and the wicket would stay green for the rest of the year, for the rest of the game. So these wickets were green and hard. They didn't do sideways lateral movement. They just kissed, and you could always see how good the wicket was, because 2 things would happen. One is you would never get bowling marks, follow-through marks at the crease. It would be rock hard. You'd never be repairing the creases for bowlers. And secondly, the wicket would continue to be green on the 3rd, 4th day. It tended to be a bit juicy on the first day. It got quicker on the second day, and then it started to flatten out for batting. So if you made inroads on the first day on green seaming wickets, what should I say? It didn't seem a lot. Swinging wickets, because we had a gentleman called Graham Rose back then, who was a phenomenal swing bowler of the ball. And we had a very good partnership in the fact that I swung the ball. We were very good at preparing the ball and getting it to swing. And the wickets were green. So there was good, conducive carry here. The slips loved fielding in this wicket because they were just good height catches. There was never to your feet to low. It was always good carry. Yeah. But those wickets back then were green hard seamers, and they stayed hard. And it was good because it was a good atmosphere for cricket, because you had batters who would have to play well, and you had bowlers who had to bowl well. I always value a wicket, or should I say rate a wicket in this day and age, and even back then, as a wicket. A good wicket's a wicket where a batter, once you've released the ball, is committed to a shot. And those were the wickets we had back in the early 90s. We had wickets where when you bowled the ball, the batter couldn't change his mind halfway through a shot, whether he was going to come forward or back. Right. He was committed to a shot. Yeah. And that's what I rated as good quality wickets around the country. And Taunton was one, Surrey was another, Lancashire was another. Trent Bridge was a bit like that as well, but the 3 main wickets that were good, pacey wickets were Taunton, Lancashire and Surrey.
Right. So, in 1993, when Lancashire came down here to play, Talk us through that game.
It was a low-scoring game.
It was.
You know, we had Mush was our overseas in the team.
And he was playing his first game.
He was playing his first game. Lancashire, they were, you know, Test cricketers all the way through. You had some serial Watkins, you had Atherton, you had Fairbrother. You had some serious players in that team. I think Awazim Akram was even in the side.
Yes, he
so
was. You're
you
right.
had some really good, strong overseas players and good quality cricket. But it was a low-scoring match, and it wasn't. I did a little bit in the first innings, but it seemed a lot, and probably unfortunately to me, when it seems for me, you know, that tends to play and miss a lot.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate that we were dead and buried, but there's a last heroic swing of the bat from Andre van Troost, which got us from, I think, about a 50 to 60 run lead to about a 100 run lead. I think it was a 95 run lead. So that sort of turned the tables, and the spell of bowling in the second innings from me was, you know, the rest is history. But I'm still annoyed with Mush because he got that one wicket, and yeah, it was just everything just clicked from ball one. Everything just clicked.
I sat and watched the whole of that game, sat down in the old Stragglers bar. I remember sitting in the seats there watching out, thinking they were chasing whatever, less than 100.
Yeah, I think it was about 95
yeah,
or
something like that,
something like
88, 95. Yeah, but to see you guys roll them over, and in fact they looked like they were going to get them, didn't they? Because Watkinson had
there was a
yeah.
little bit of resurgence towards
Yeah.
the end, but then we managed to put a little bit of pressure on them and knock them over. But no, it was a great game, and for me, it was just the stepping stone I needed to go to the next level.
I was going to say, yeah, because that's when you got recognition and got called up for the Test match, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there was a baptism of fire against the Aussies, and
Yes,
you're sitting there thinking, well, you know, of all the teams you come up against, but and the worst case scenario I could ever have was my first Test at Old Trafford. It was like this. It was rain 2 weeks prior to the Test. I remember they used to have the old, I think it was the old tarpaulin blow-up cover, and that had been on the wicket for about 3, 4, 5 days. And the unfortunate thing with that cover was the condensation would be inside and it would drop into the wicket,
Yeah.
so it was never kept dry compared to the wickets the covers they use today. And I can also remember that our training was done in an indoor school where they play indoor cricket, which was the competition back then. It was a big competition, big in Australia, big in New Zealand, and it was also back then big in the UK. And we were training indoor, not an indoor wicket, not in the indoor centres we have now, but an indoor cricket wicket for indoor cricket. So, you know, not the greatest preparation, wet wicket, and yeah, I didn't do too well for that whole series, but it sort of showed how difficult and how big a step it was up from first class to Test cricket.
But you continued to play, obviously, England cricket and Somerset cricket, and you had an amazing season in '98, didn't you, when you got 100 wickets? You're the last Somerset player to take 100 wickets in a season, 100 first class. I mean, that's a major achievement, Caddy.
Yeah, it was difficult back then because when you're playing Test cricket and domestic cricket, first class cricket, you were torn between Test match, off to a first class game, Test match, first class game, Test match, and that was before the contracts came available. And you were actually employed by your county, and you were on loan, as they say, to the TCCB, as it was back then. And the TCCB remunerated Somerset for you being away. So the 90s, it was basically up to we had contracts. It was basically you were controlled by your county.
Yeah.
So if I had a Test match at Old Trafford, for argument's sake, and then unfortunately I had a domestic game away, I could go 6-8 weeks and not be home. The only time I'd go home was maybe on a Monday night to wash my whites, to throw them in a bag again, to jump in a car, to travel somewhere on a Wednesday or Tuesday to meet up for a Thursday Test match.
Yeah.
So for me, if I had a home match, that was a bonus for Somerset. If I didn't, I was on the road. So back then it was very much the county was in control, and you were released to the TCCB, as I say, England back then. And it wasn't until the contracts came in place when the ECB took over as your employer and you were on loan to your club. So that's where the crossover was.
Which is very different the way it is now.
It's very different the way it is now. Yeah, back then, there's one thing I'll always say, and I'll say this to any England cricketer. well done, crack on, brilliant what you're doing. As long as they have respect for my generation, which was the Duncan Fletcher, the Nasser Hussain, the Atherton, when we went through the contracts, because I remember we were on strike. We were going on strike. There was a test match against Pakistan, and we were on strike in our hotel in Old Trafford and Manchester. And we weren't paying that test until we'd pushed, because back then a gentleman called Richard Bevan was the PCA rep, and he was modernising the game as far as the contracts are concerned between the ECB and the players. So we were on strike a number of times, trying to get these contracts through. So as long as the players of today have the respect for what they've got now from the players who went through that period, that crossover period from when we became the TCCB to the ECB, crack on. I don't have any problem. But I think the generation now don't understand what we went through to where they are today. I think they need to just look back and see how cricket has developed in the UK.
But nobody's taken 100 wickets since, Caddy. Tell us about
No.
that 98 season. Come on, you've got
It
to remember
was a strange season because I can remember we were playing Worcester. The penultimate game when the Test team was announced was here at Worcester. And Graham Hick had been scoring a lot of runs for Worcester. I'd been taking wickets. I had about 88 wickets in that summer already. And the Test was announced. And it was announced we were playing here the Sunday. And we were playing here against Worcester, and the Test match team was announced, and my name was not on that list. I was fuming. I was absolutely fuming because I thought to myself, you're taking 80-odd wickets in a summer. What more do you have to do? But that's life. Even when I retired, I remember David Lloyd on his little speech about thanking me and how he admired me as a player, and even he said at the time we should have picked him more. But that's hindsight. That's great. I had a great career as far as England's concerned. 10 years and 62 tests. I can't begrudge that. I'd love to have played more, but that's just the way it runs out. But
234 wickets.
Yeah, but that's nothing these days, though, is it? The players of today are looked after a lot better. They're treated a lot better, and so they should be. Being a fast bowler is hard work. It's a hard game, and if you can get 10 years out of your body, you're doing very well.
That 100 wickets then, Caddy. You weren't picked, so how did you come to get the 100 wickets then?
I can't remember. I can't remember. I cannot remember who it was against and who it was. I know I had 105 for the summer, and what really annoyed me was that Courtney Walsh beat me by 1 at 106. I cannot remember that 100th wicket. You probably know the 100th wicket.
I can't remember either. I couldn't look it up, but
No.
It was just the fact that you took 100 wickets, and that's quite an achievement, isn't it?
It is, but you go back yesteryear to the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
They would take 300 wickets in a summer. Because they were playing so much cricket. I think there was something like 30-odd matches in the summer. It's just non-stop. So, but in the modern game, 17 games and 100 wickets. Yeah. But the annoying thing was that Courtney beat me by 1.
Which was your favourite end down here when you were bowling?
I always like running in from the
river end
because it's a bit like Lords, it's a bit like Headingley. I like to run up a slight hill. Because you can attack the crease more. Occasionally I'd bowl from this end, but that would only be if the wind was the right way around. But predominantly the wind was from the southwest here, which is coming from the Clocks Tower. Should I say the church tower here?
Yeah.
So I'd always bowl up the hill with the winds with the shape.
What was your favourite delivery? What do you think was your most productive delivery?
Oh, I said everyone. My career changed when a certain ex-Devon lad, a gentleman called Mark Lathwell, taught me how to bowl an off-cutter.
Right.
So my whole career changed from learning that skill. And that allowed me to start being more productive and thinking of how to work players out. To me, that period, probably the late 90s through to 2003, 4, 5, was the most productive period because I'd learnt the skill set. And I've always said you never stop learning, even to the day I stopped bowling. You never stop learning. You never stop learning about your body. You never stop learning about your action. You never stop learning about your skills. You never stop learning about the next generation of cricketers coming through, because the generation will always change, as you see now with 2020 cricket. The shot selection is completely different to what we were playing. But for me, there's nothing better than seeing a wicket being cartwheeled out the ground, is there? Nothing. And in fact, I've got a picture, a great picture. If you remember, we used to play the Sunday League matches here with the restricted run-ups, and we were playing Hampshire here, and in the side there was, like I said, David Gower, there's Robin Smith, Paul. I think it was Paul. No, I can't remember who the other one was.
Paul Terry.
Paul Terry, that's the one. And again, they had Macca bowling here as well, Malcolm Marshall. It was a Sunday League match, restricted run-ups. I took 4 for 16. I've got this picture, and it's on my wall at home. It's a cracking picture, and it's of Robin Smith's off stump, out the ground, cartwheeling with the ball in the bail, and then playing the shot. And I got him to sign it, and he said, "Too good for me, China. Pity about the no ball." So, but that's probably one of the any bowler will want to see the off stump or a set of stumps being splayed out the ground, because that's you beating the player hands up, and also getting the maximum dramatic dismissal you can have, which is your bails and your wickets being torn out the ground.
Fantastic. You won several awards with the county, didn't you? I mean, you're here for a long time, but probably I think you're involved with 3 award-winning sides, 3 cup-winning sides. 2001 must be sort of somewhere in the memory. When we sort of broke the duck from 83, when we went to Lords and we played against Leicestershire in the final. I mean, we'd been there before in 99, hadn't we, and didn't get over the line.
We had, but the difference was we had Jamie Cox.
Yeah.
And this club, and I don't care what anybody says, this club and a lot of clubs in the country, they respond to good overseas players. I don't know whether it's the mentality, which is just a get on with it mentality, no excuse mentality. I tend to have that mentality myself. It's just like, get on with it, stop whinging about it, get on with the job. And I think that's what overseas captains have brought. So we had Jamie, we had Biff, Graham Smith, we had Ponting, we've had Justin Langer. Now, the club has always responded to these sorts of players. In their own right, these players are phenomenal players. Jamie Cox was probably an underrated player at his time. But what he did was he brought the team together and started that process of starting to win, of that mentality. We also had a very good coach at that time, with Dermot Reeve. Now, Dermot was out there as far as what he was trying to teach the players and the mentality of the players, but it was brilliant stuff. And you could ask any player of the time who their best coach was, and they would say Dermot Reeve, without a doubt, because he just thought outside the box. Who would have thought that in a game that he would think when the ball bounced on him, he'd throw his bat to the ground and punch it away with his hands, because you could not be out. There's no way of, the law states your hands must be on the bat for the glove to be to be deemed as out. So these are the things that were going through his head. So it was quite strange putting onto players, but as far as the time was concerned, then 2001 through to 2005, you would say that it was the overseas captains that had the most influence on this team.
And he took us. 99 was his first season. That was your first benefit.
It was, yeah.
It was, yes. Remember that. And
you've got one of my ties, I'm sure.
I have, yes, indeed. You know how it is. He's one today, Caddy. You know that one. But yeah, he took us there in '99, and we didn't quite make it. But 2001, we did, didn't we?
We did. We did make it, and it was that was a strange game, because there was one period in that game with Bosworth who everybody felt for him, even the batters felt for him. I think Peter Bowler was batting at the time. And he just lost it. As a bowler, it's probably the worst scenario you can ever have, especially in a high spotlighted game. So everybody felt sorry for him. In fact, I think that finished his career basically. which was really unfortunate because he was a good bowler. He was a good day in, day out county bowler. But no, that was the unfortunate downside of the game, but the highlight was us coming away with the trophy.
Fantastic. Then the T20 came on board, didn't it? I mean, you were here when that came on the blocks. I mean, what was the reaction? What was your thought about T20 cricket when it first arrived?
Like everybody, I thought at the time. They thought, what the heck's this? What game is this? Why are we playing this game? But I think as time went on, people started realising it was good, entertaining stuff. And for a bowler, 4 overs. What more can you say? 4 overs in a day, you take that all day long. And now the format it is now worldwide, well, it's just a phenomenon. The best thing I think for the game is it's the kids. It's bringing the kids. It's bringing highlighting the cricket to the youngsters. But I think there was a survey done years ago that it was like the attention span for a human is around an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and they've managed to pack that sort of time in. So for 45 minutes to an hour, people are hooked in the game. It's fast impact, high impact. But as far as players are concerned, it was a strange one to start with, but then we had one of the biggest records down there, didn't we, with Justin Langer and Cameron White. 250 on the board.
Against Gloucestershire.
And it just goes to show that it's entertaining stuff.
Yeah. But again, it was an overseas captain who led us to the success at the Oval, wasn't it?
It was Graham Smith. It was a phenomenal game. It was a phenomenal day. We did well to get through in the semi-final, and then the final was just let loose, and that's what happened.
Lancashire, what a side they had!
Yeah, they had a very good side.
Yeah.
The fact that they had a very good side, and I remember my first over. The fact that Richard Johnson had dropped Mel Loy after hooking me on the boundary.
Yes.
I think it was second ball. And then, fortunately for me, fourth ball, he did the same thing. And this time, Richard caught it. He hung on to it. And then I got a few overs later, I managed to get Andrew Flintoff out. So, but the finals day, you just don't know on finals day. We've seen some phenomenal finals days. You just don't know. It's just, Somerset last year had a phenomenal semi-final and unfortunately didn't make it into the final, through in the final. But finals day, it's a toss of the coin. Simple as that these days.
Yeah. And then Charles Willoughby turned up here, didn't he? And joined us, and you and he bowled us really to success in 2007, back to the First Division.
Charles, I will put my hand on heart and say he's probably one of the nicest blokes you'll ever meet, and probably the best partner I've played with as far as opening bowler is concerned, behind Darren Gough and Test level. So he had all the attributes. And the two of us, we were a little bit ruthless at times, and worked really well as a partnership. And that's what you need in cricket. You need a bowler and your bowlers working with each other. Whether you're a spinner, whether you're not a seamer, whether you're a medium pacer, it doesn't matter what discipline you are. As far as bowling is concerned, you need to work in partnerships. Duncan Fletcher was always adverse. Well, he was always right in saying, and he was always saying, should I say, if you bowl three maiden overs in a row, 9 times out of 10 you'll get a wicket, and that still stands today. If you watch, it's very difficult to bowl three maidens in a row, but 9 times out of 10, if you manage to do it as a side, you will obtain a wicket because that pressure just builds up. And Charles was phenomenal at the other end with me, and I really enjoyed my time with Charles. And luckily, 2007, we managed a good partnership and got back under the First Division.
Indeed, and I mean, you took a lot of wickets between you. And that was more or less the end of your career, wasn't it? You sort of, by then, once you'd had that season, things were becoming a bit more difficult, keeping your body together.
Well, for me, I had an issue with my upper thoracic back, and 2007 I was on painkillers and jabs to keep me going, and I decided that I was still capable of bowling, even though I was in pain. I decided I wanted to carry on. I had a upper thoracic operation, so there's steel work on my back now to get me through to carry on. What was I, 30? I was 37, 38. Yeah. So I was thinking, well, my days aren't over yet. I can still do a job. Unfortunately, that operation just slightly changed the dynamics of and the technical side of the action. And whereas before, 10 out of 10 I'd be hitting the seam, after that operation, I started noticing that the ball wasn't hitting the seam as much. Was scuffing the sides and that becomes a frustration when you have how can you say, high expectations and high level of excellence, which you want to continue doing. And that slightly changed. And then that wasn't quite coming back. The biggest benefit that I had that summer, which was at the beginning of the summer 2008, is we went to Abu Dhabi, pre-season Abu Dhabi, which I think without that I probably would have called it a day. And that with the warm climate and bowling every day and loosening and getting the body working again was brilliant to get me another couple of years. But it came to the point when 2009, beginning of 2009, it just started to hurt. And I just thought to myself, this body's had enough. And after 20 odd years of bowling down here, it did call it. It did have to call a day on it.
Over 1,000 first class wickets, though, Caddy.
1182.
Exactly.
I think.
See, I knew you'd know. I knew you'd know exactly how many.
Yeah, those. I don't know. It's. Yeah, I remember I was talking to Crofty, Robert Croft, and he's got over 1,000 wickets. So it's testament to him how good a bowler he was. And I don't think we're going to see that again. No. I don't think we'll see that. I think the players of the day, especially the first class players, they tend to be a little bit more mollycoddled. They tend to work on strength and conditioning a bit too much. Spending too much time in a gym. I didn't spend hardly any time in a gym. I did a lot of swimming as a player. A lot of bit of core stability just to keep the strength up in the core. But for me, it was mainly swimming and bowling. You learn your trade out there. There's no exercise in a gym that'll teach you that out there. In fact, I've always been an advocate of saying, look, heavy weights tightens you up. You look at someone like Sid Lawrence, for argument's sake. We go back to someone like Sid Lawrence. We look at Jack Callis. He went from being slim and quick to big and bulky, and he lost all his pace. I do think being big and bulky is not the way to go. It's being slim and trim. And the biggest advocate of that is someone like Jimmy Anderson.
Absolutely.
Just slim and trim and bowl.
Yeah. Just sort of look back over your career. Who would be some of the best batsmen you've had a chance to bowl at?
Domestic level, I would say one of my nemesis was a gentleman called Mark Rambakash. He was phenomenal for his for his career, throughout his career, especially at domestic level. He knew where his off stump was. And not many players at that era knew where their off stump was, and I could manipulate them around the crease. And that was my job as a bowler, fast bowler, to get them moving around the crease into positions they didn't want to be in. Mark wouldn't. He would just stand still. Very simple, technical batter. Mark was a good player to play against. As far as test level is concerned, you're playing against someone like Ricky Ponting, Sachin Tendulkar. I didn't play a lot against Sachin because we didn't play a lot against the Indian teams. But Ricky Ponting, Adam Gilchrist. Nobody wanted to bowl at Adam Gilchrist. Because 9 times out of 10, they either had 400 on the board, and he was coming in with a new ball. When you're just saying the new ball, just smashing it all apart. So back then, nobody wanted to bowl at Adam. But you had the War Brothers, you had the Aussies, you had Pakistan. You had some phenomenal players against Pakistan. New Zealand cricket teams. You had Stephen Fleming's. Macmillan's, you had some phenomenal teams at the time, and then you had the West Indies. You could say more about Brian Lara. I think technically Brian Lara was the hardest bowler I've ever bowled at, because he knew how to play late, and I think the beauty of playing and being a phenomenal first team cricketer or test match cricketer or international cricketer is being able to see the ball and play late. And there was a player, as I said, we mentioned him before, Mark Lathwell. One of the most phenomenally talented players I've ever played with. He was very good because, and I mean very, very good, because he saw the ball late. He played it late. I can still remember watching him now. Just that back foot punch through the offside, through the covers. It's just a simple shutter back, bang, gone. And there were some bowlers around the country when he was playing that didn't like playing against Mark Lathwell. So, but as far as myself, Lara, Tendulkar, Ponting, Jack Callis, you've you've had some phenomenal players in my era, but there's just good players out there now.
You played against the best, Caddy?
I've played against, I think, I remember having this chat with Dean Headley a number of years ago. And we were thinking about the times we were playing. Would you want to play now, or play in the last 10 years, or play in the era that we played in? And we came to the same conclusion that we think we played in the best era, because it was a true test. Test cricket now, the resurgence, what Brendan McCullum's done, and Ben Stokes has been brilliant for English cricket. But again, I'd hate to say it, but you've got two Kiwis together, two Kiwi-born players.
Absolutely.
You can take that as you wish. But it's just that go out there and perform. No hold back. Just get on and do it. And this is the mentality they're playing now. But I think Test cricket is under a lot of pressure now. I think the domestic game is under a lot of pressure, because unfortunately we're in an era now where money is raised by the shorter game, whether it's the 2020 or the 100, and unfortunately that's to the detriment of first-class cricket and Test cricket. And I'm just hoping the powers to be up with the ECB actually see that the Test cricket is the real test of being an international cricketer. One-day cricket, yes, is the financial instrument that keeps Test cricket going and keeps the county surviving, based on all the TV income. But at the end of the day, Test cricket is fundamentally the basis of all cricket. It's it is a test. It's not an entertaining. There can be a lot of entertainment in 2020 cricket, but there can just be as much entertainment in Test cricket. Who would have thought that Test match against New Zealand would come down to England would come down to them winning with one ball left and one wicket?
Incredible.
And this is the thing. This is where the one-day cricket in 2020 and around the world is affecting Test cricket. It's making it a great spectacle, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you do it all again, Caddy?
If my body, if I was 25 or 23, 22, I'd love to do it all again. It's the day I retired, 2009, and the day I finished with England in 2003. I still remember that last test at Sydney. Phenomenal game, phenomenal atmosphere, because I think we had about 15,000 Barmy Army watching. And we went down, I remember now, just when we won that test match, going down and applauding the Barmy Army for the support over the tour. It was a hard tour, that tour, in 2003. But, yeah, if I could do it all again, I would, because you miss the camaraderie with the players. You miss that banter. You miss being away with the players, enjoying yourself, but then playing hard. So playing hard both on the field and off the field, enjoying yourself. Yeah. Because there's a very, very fine balance, because the amount of cricket they play now, they've got to be able to enjoy it. But could I go back? I'd love to go back. I'd love to be 22, 23 again. I'd love to be playing this IPL all around the world. But my heart would still be wanting to play Test cricket. That would be my fundamental, wanting to play Test cricket was the most important part of it.
You look back all those years ago to when you were signed for Somerset, and you came down here to an alien place, an alien county, and yet here you are in 2023, still living here. What is it about this place that appeals to you, that's made you want to be here, that kept you here through your career and has kept you living here now? What is it about Somerset?
When I first came here in 89, 90, yeah. It was the atmosphere. It was a family atmosphere. We had a great chief exec in Peter Anderson. We had great people. We had great staff. It was just a family club. I lived in London for 3 years. It's far enough away from London, from the bustling pace of life up there. I remember coming my first year in London. I was shocked at how much things cost coming from New Zealand when it was 3-1, the exchange rate, the currency exchange rate. But no, coming down here, it was the quality of life. It's a nice part of the world. It's a warmer climate. You've got some beautiful coastlines down here. Being a Kiwi, being brought up around boats and coastline and water. And of course, family. My family are here. The kids are here. The wife's here. They've all grown up here. They've all schooled here. It's a great county to live in.
And what about the punters around the ground? I mean, what was it like to come and play in front of them, and the reception you still get when you walk around here?
I would say that Somerset are without doubt the best supported club in the country. My wife, back in the early 90s, was the membership secretary here. That's how I met her. So I didn't go far from the ground, as I say. So I've got a lot of ties here. We had 6,500 members then. We've got over 7,000 members now, and that's 30 years later. So that's testament to the club, testament to the supporters here, that they love their cricket, they love this county. This, as I said, has always been a family atmosphere, family-operated club. It should continue that way. I think we're slightly going away from what's best for the supporters. The days when we used to have the old pavilion were brilliant, because you'd walk down from the dressing room straight into the Colin Atkinson Pavilion bar. You'd be sitting there. You'd be drilled and grilled by the supporters, and you learnt your cricket. And the other thing is, the teams would be together. So the opposition would go down to the bar. You'd have a chat with the opposition on the day. The following day you go back, you'd be slogging out against them again, and the following day you'd have another beer downstairs talking about the game. I think that's what we miss. I think the supporters miss that, being able to be close to the players and talk to the players and show their support and show their love for the team and what they're doing. Those days have gone, which is unfortunate. I think those days need to come back, because without the supporters, you haven't really got a team. You haven't got a club. Yes, we can turn and say, without the club, you've got no finances. Without the club, you've got no cricket. Without the club, you've got no players. But at the end of the day, without the supporters, you've got no team. Yeah. So I think we need to be a little bit more focused on the fact that this club is built up around the supporters, who's got phenomenal support, and that needs to continue. That needs to be more emphasised.
Caddy, they love their cricket down here. They loved you playing down here. Thank you for coming to talk to us today. We've really enjoyed it. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard.